Thanks for tuning in to Gin and Tantra, Spirituality with a Twist. You have Daniel here with you today. Eric is, well, Eric's not here, but we have Katie with us. Katie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we are in, I'm not going to say the middle, but we are in this phase of attachments, working with love and desire and sexuality and bonding relationships in a spiritual fashion, using the eyes and the gaze of those who turn their everyday experiences into learning opportunities for them. So we're kind of in the middle of this. So simultaneously, we're having conversations with our friend Phaedra on kind of non-monogamous, more kind of kink-based things. We're having conversations with Eric on the psychological kind of side of attachment, and of course, all of this is the background for our kind of series on Karma Mudra, Kama Sutra, which is taught out of the Buddhist tradition. So everything is going towards these ends, right? The idea of using attachments in a healthy way to improve our lives, improve our own sense of happiness and well-being, because we're going to be engaged with them, right? But then how can we do that intentionally, consciously, and I guess better, right? Overall. And so, with this as the lead-in, I was talking with Katie earlier about what we wanted to do tonight, and she had brought up a dating experiences as we are in the foray of that now, and share some experiences and some things like this because it's a different beast out there now, and as it will probably be in 10 years from now, and as it was 10 years ago, and however long this country is around for. So yeah, so I wanted to give you the floor here and let you start us off.
Yeah, so I mean, it just is the experience right now in ways of my framework. I've been single for 4.5 years, and Daniel being newly single. It's kind of been at the bridge of our conversation a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting, and I wanted to talk about navigating the dating world as you're now being. And both of us were in longer relationships, so probably weren't really dating in between now and 10 years ago. And like you said, like there's different roles of digitization and apps and things like that, but just our inner journey, I think we've been on a spiritual path that whole time and preceding it, but how we've grown and grown forward and how we experience dating now as that spiritually seeking being and wanting to find partners that resonate with us or are
Hmm.
on their own path that probably won't look the same, but can find a congruency.
Yeah.
And it's hard out there. So I wanted to talk about that, some of the differences we're experiencing, similar patterns from the past that we want to shed. And then even just, I think about this a lot is are the practices in my life and the way I live my life normal to most people? No, but there are places where I'm shy to share that, and so I wanted to kind
Mm.
of open that up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other part. Oh, the aging process. If we have time to get to that, because I'm experiencing that differently now as a 41-year-old woman dating, and I'm curious a man's perspective in it, if it's even part of mine. So
Yeah.
that's my overview of what I would love to talk about. But
Sure. Sure.
yeah,
Okay,
so I guess
so
go
let's
ahead.
let's let's start here then, because it kind of comes forefront to my mind, right? And so it seems like the conversation as we're doing this live, we've talked about it before, but we're doing this live, so it's going to take on a different shape, right? For those who only listen and don't have their own podcast experience, you have notes, and then you make a left turn or a right turn, or you just totally let them go. But we try and weave it together. So I think the conversation is probably best said. How is it that we weave together our own personal practice and development into a relationship with another person and accepting where they are on their path and they are on our path, and how do those two paths move parallel, or can they be congruent if they're not necessarily exactly parallel? Would you say
Can
that's
I
a good
ask a
summary?
question? Summary, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
I think that's definitely it. But I think my question bridging off of that to you
yeah.
is what are like the top three or maybe one most important thing, not that you're looking for in like how they are, but like your experience, how you feel, like what you feel from them or you feel exists in them that you want reflected in yourself.
Okay, so I'll answer that by finishing what I was saying earlier. So that is the framework of the kind of like the conversation is that like I think at this point for and again I just speak for myself and I'm gonna maybe speak for people who are listening is that I think and I don't again I can't speak for anybody else but my assumption is that people who are listening are curious to their own internal workings, right, as you are, as I am, and I find it to be ever more important now that I have been out of the dating scene, but and now back in it, that the importance placed upon self-work, self-development, and in particular reflection is one of the most utmost important aspects, characteristics, traits, if you will, of a partner. So that kind of answers one of your questions, right? And the reason the reason for this is that I'm engaged in this myself as you are, and not as a hobby, but as a passion, right? It's something that I am curious about for my own self because I find, and I like to hear what you think, I find that the deeper layers of myself that I can access and unlock, and the things that I can move from unconscious to conscious, allow me to be a more clearer version of myself, as opposed to being, I don't know, I don't want to say at the whims of something I'm not aware of, but that's probably the best way I could describe it.
What do you mean by that? Or just say more to it?
Mm. So, of course, we're growing and we're learning, right? We spend time in retreat, we journal, you do meditation, maybe some other activities, extracurricular activities, you know what I'm saying? But whatever we're using to kind of help cultivate ourselves, all of which are giving us insights, right? In addition to our friends and our relationships, because our people around us can give us back. They can say, hey, do you know that you do this thing? Or do you know that you have this behavior when this comes up? Or do you know what I'm saying? They kind of help us. So by myself engaging in this, I feel like I get, and the more that I'm aware of those things, I get to be myself more easily because I'm aware of my own behaviors and specifically the ones that probably are to my own detriment when I am bothered by something or disappointed or angered or whatever. If I'm not aware of those things, I hesitate to use the word control, but I'm going to say, I'll use one of your words, congruence. I don't have necessarily the congruency that I would like to have with a momentary fleeting emotion versus the actual being that is far more still and accepting underneath. And so I find it to be of, kind of like number one or number two priorities to have that mirrored in a partner in their own way, but that it's very difficult to describe, number one. And even when you can find some language to it, you have to work to get to know somebody in order to put that into a conversation that doesn't seem contrite. So it's difficult.
I think one thing I've noticed, and this might be with someone that I don't even end up going on multiple dates or continuing with, but that energetic of feeling congruence, like I'm really in my own congruence in the reflection of this person. And maybe it's because they have something they're really ambitious about or something they're working on. So, like you say, it might not be something I can quite point at or name, but when I leave that person, I feel more motivated in what my next
Mm,
thing I wanted to do is. And
hmm
that's the type of person I definitely want to be around where it's not like they necessarily need to build me up on the thing I'm going to go do. Their energy just holds that. And then I am in mine. And I
mm.
think that vibration is like so cool. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you used that in a way of like not being able to describe it, but it's that because that is really
hmm
important to me. And I wasn't thinking of that as one of my answers.
hmm
Like the
hmm
self work, yes, but that energetic resonance, I want to claim that. That's what I
Yeah.
want to feel with my person.
I think the other thing that is been unique about this experience is noticing the way in which I communicate, right? So, what I mean by this is that like people love to text message, right? I can tell you that of all the people that I've met, On the phone, talk to, very few. People will even meet in person before they'll talk on the phone.
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
I would way rather meet in person before I talk to a stranger on the phone. Totally.
Right.
I,
So
and I, 'cause I know you're different, and I'm like,
you're one of
oh
these
no,
you're one of
no.
these weirdos. That's fine.
I
Okay.
am. I am one of those weirdos. I'm like coffee date 1 hour, and then we decide if we're going on a real date.
Sure.
That's my MO.
Yeah, yeah, it's just an interesting thing. So as you're and people text message all the time. Everybody text messages, But like it's interesting when you write somebody, at least for me, this is how my mind works. And I don't know, audience, please comment because I do love to see how people think or hear how people think. I hear my own voice and I hear my own tenor and I hear my own playfulness in a message with emojis or without. Okay. But then when I send it, it doesn't always land in the way that I had intended it to land,
Sure.
specifically with humor or with stories. And so it's just a very clear reminder that, like, even when your intentions are good or whatever the case is, things still don't get interpreted in the way that you want them, you know? And it's just
Yeah.
such an interesting learning opportunity to try and refine the process of expression, especially with people who don't know you and are going to just read what you say verbatim and then play it in their mind with their own voice, how they're seeing it. And you're playing it in your own voice with how you're seeing it. And where does that, like you said, that congruency come into play? And I feel like it's going to come back to that kind of ability to be patient and do reflection and say, is this thing um, fitting in the way that I believe it to be, or is there room for other interpretations?
Well, and you're absolutely right. Like I just to like disclaimer, like once I've met someone, now I can talk to you.
Right.
But going backwards, I'm wondering if you have the same experience because I've been doing it a little bit longer. So I've met a lot of the people that I've had conversations with, whether they're really short, whether they're more detailed, or we set a date and we don't really talk till we go to the date. And that's kind of how I like to roll
Yeah.
because I'm living my life, then we'll meet.
Yeah.
But that said, I can tell. I can, doesn't the tone is the tone or the words or the whatever, but like there is a vibration that comes through whatever is being said that I can tell if I'm going to be connected with this person on some level. Maybe that doesn't mean attracted or that we're going to go somewhere, but I can tell we're going to have a good time or this is
Sure.
going to be really annoying. And it doesn't even mean we had a weird texting conversation, but there's an energetic resonance that I'm like, I might as well just cancel it now. I know it's not good me what I want. But do you feel that, or have you experienced where you're like, yeah, I knew that wasn't going to go that way, or
I,
I
you
kind of knew
know,
it was going to go that way?
it's been a different experience. I've had a number, I've not been in it for that long, so you know, I've had some interesting experiences. I've had you wanted to hear a couple of these earlier, so I'll give you one now. Um, so there was somebody who who I was messaging with for a couple days and was very eager to meet, wanted to get together, have some whatever. And so, but they only had one picture and it wasn't very clear. That's done intentionally, right? And so you match and you send messages and then you say, do you mind showing me yourself? And the response, and this is, again, I'm a straight male. Katie's a, straight female. Um, so this woman then said, well, what kind of pictures do you want? And I said, however you would like for me to see you. I'm not going to ask for anything, whatever you want. I mean, I've only been messaging you for a few hours now. I'm not going to, ask for anything inappropriate,
What are
right?
you going to send me? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, of course, what did this person send me? A multitude of pictures, more or less clothed. And I certainly didn't ask for that. And then as we're messaging, more came later.
Now,
And
is this the norm? Like, because I'm on the female side. I've never received, and that would like kind of be assault in like a you've never met a man kind of world.
so
But like, never has it gone to that.
all right, so I'll finish telling you. So we're messaging and we still have plans to meet for coffee, even though she's like, why don't, let's just go back to, this place or that place, whatever, right? And I'm like, no, we're still meeting. Coffee is still happening. I've never met you. I've just text messaging with you for a couple days. I'm definitely not going to like I still there's still barriers. You don't get to me just like this. I don't care what man, dude, whatever. Like I gotta like you. I gotta know you. I gotta trust you a little bit. And so I'm getting all these messages, like videos and like it's a lot. And then we're supposed to meet
Or like
for
number at this point, number of messages.
number of mess texting back and forth, like 100 for sure.
Ah, okay, we're in. Got it.
Number of pictures, in probably a dozen or so.
Baker's dozen. Got
None that
it.
and again, I've asked for none of that. I've asked for none of this. I find that that would be inappropriate when you just met some like that is no, I'm not going to send anybody that shit. So like, definitely not going to ask anybody to send me that shit for sure. Like, when's your birthday? Not, what do you look like in a green thong? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Like, what are you looking for in a relationship?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's usually like a good starter.
So we have plans to go to for coffee, and then like in the morning, I said, "Are you on the way? Hope you had a good night. I'll see you in a couple hours. If anything goes wrong, please just let me know." And she's like, "No problem. See you soon." And then just as I'm getting ready to leave, I can't make it. I gotta go take care of my grandmother. This thing like this, and then never heard from her again.
Oh,
And
okay.
and so here and so here so I've talked with a couple people about this. Apparently, this is a phenomenon. I don't have the name for it, so I apologize for listeners who are wanting a name, but you probably could look it up. I talked about this with our co-contributor Phaedra, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's a thing." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "People will send other people messages, pictures, or videos of them naked in order to get praise and feel
Mm.
good about themselves, and then they ghost you."
Oh,
And then I was talking about this with one of my somebody else who I know who's not in the dating scene and is an older person, and she said, "Oh, I've heard of that before, but I thought that was only with gay men." And I was like, "Wait a minute. It happens with men too?" She's like, "Oh, I've heard about that a number of times with like she's like I have some gay friends and the gay male friends, and they've mentioned that before, that like some guy will be into them and send them all these pictures, and then when it's time to meet, never hear from him ever again." And
wow.
so it's just this weird. So, again, happened to me. I mentioned it to two people, and they're both like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that before."
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I guess I just glanced down at my notes of like living a lifestyle that you're shy to share, but like clearly not shy to share that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess bridging off of what the weird experiences are. Like, what differences have you noticed in how you're approaching dating or how you meet somebody and what your mindset of how you're building that out would be versus how it might have been 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit, it's very different. So you mentioned the age part, right? And so I think every 10 years is going to represent something slightly different. Right. So when you're the way that you date when you're 20 is different than how you date when you're 30, is different
Sure.
than how you date when you're 40, which is right. Because your responsibilities change and you have different priorities, and also you're older. So even though I feel like me, you feel like you, people who are listening feel like themselves, but we see ourselves as, hopefully, at least how I see myself, is a, playful 20 something year old. And when my body doesn't do what I want it to do, I'm like, "Hey, how come you didn't do that?
Mm-hmm.
You used to do that. What's going on?" So I'm kind of surprised. And then, you look and you see yourself older. And then you write down and the weird part is that like you write down your age on the prompts for the dating site, and you're like, "Ooh, that's older than I was." You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And then now people who you would, I say for me, for myself, like the age range of people who I might be interested in, I'm going to be judged based on my height, my age, where I live, what I put down as my profession, my interests on like, do I have children, not children? What's my religion? What are my political views? Do I drink? Do I smoke? Do I take, pills or do I do whatever? And those things are all made filters, and then people filter about what they want and don't want.
I kind of love that though. I don't think of it as being judged. I think of it as like those are kind of initial conversation. If you were to meet someone at a bar, you get some of that out pretty much right away and you decide
Sure.
if they're not. And so I think
Sure.
I kind of like the like they're bare bones enough that it feels like, well, I don't need to waste time around
Yeah.
someone who already is not resonating with me. They've already chosen that. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me I'm a little bit more, even though I know what it is that I am, I'm searching for in terms of a dynamic. I'm also far more patient than I ever have been, really,
Okay.
when it comes to meeting people and hearing them, because some people are at different points in their process. And so I don't know what they're working on or what the case is. So I feel like I might be missing out on some things based on some of these preliminaries. And simultaneously, like, I don't consider myself a standard 79-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Even though I appear like I'm 150, I have the soul of a 20.
Wait, how many ages are we?
I mean, I'm 43. So, but I am, as you are, we're active people. I don't feel that way. I'm an active individual. So, but then but to see it and be judged, and you are being judged for sure, as we are doing too. Um,
Yeah.
it's
I
a
think that's a little bit of the hard part that I've been like kind of coming up against, not so much on the dating apps, but like in the wild. Like I am maybe about 5 years older than like a lot of the guys I'm around,
Yeah,
and there's definitely interest in ways I didn't realize that has kind of been spoken around of like you had no idea those guys were all trying to hit on you and we were,
yeah,
whatever. But I have this thing in my mind that I'm like old. They look at me as old. And I said something to a friend who's, I think, 35 this week, where I was just talking about dating. And he's like, well, it's a different world now. I'm like, it is a different world, but tell me what you mean by that. And when he came back around to have the conversation, I was like, did you mean I was old? And I like made that what his narrative was, him telling me it was a different world than, last time I was dating. It had a lot more to do with like I guess like the Me Too movement and guys being
yeah,
nervous to approach women. And that's what his frame of mind was. But I just made it that his story about me was that I was old. And so I'm like, oh, I am brushing up against this hard. And I didn't realize it, noticing
yeah,
different wrinkles and
yeah,
not feeling as good. And thinking that other people are looking at me, forget about the stats on a Hinge page, that people that are even like flirting with me, that deep down they're like, yeah, but she's old, this is just like for fun.
That's harsh. That's
I know
harsh,
I gotta
man.
I gotta step outside of that
Yeah,
fast and
yes. So
hard.
I have, and so as I'm going through this process, I am also going to be exactly who the fuck I am for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that is a non-compromise. I I like to communicate. I like to be open. We're doing far more of these podcasts now. Content comes out every day. Like, comment, subscribe, share our work, please. We're definitely trying to get the ball rolling here. So we appreciate all the feedback and input and love that everybody gives us. Please feel free to hit us up at ginandtantra@gmail.com. The Instagram Gin and Tantra podcast. Leave a comment up in here. Do your thing. We appreciate everybody participating in whatever way you feel comfortable.
Can I angle that to you about the ageism? Because
Yeah.
obviously you're thinking about like I'm older than I want to be, but like
Yeah.
how does that affect you? And like, do you look at your appearance in different ways? Or you just like kind of like the age is going to be filtered in and out? Or are you looking at yourself in ways of
Well,
judgment?
like everything, as we grow, and this time we're speaking about age, there is and we talked earlier about as you grow, as you age, there's different responsibilities. And so I don't have the time that I had when I was in my 20s or early 30s to spend 2 hours at the gym, working out, taking my time, chilling. What I don't have that kind of time. So my, physique, while, not to compliment myself, is better than most people, but it is not up to what I am used to. So therefore, I see myself slightly different. However, that as the external manifestation of this physical incarnation currently is mm, less than the being that I believe that I am proud to have been cultivating over the last 18 years.
Right. Yeah.
Consciously cultivating
So that
over the
balance.
last 18 years. So the part of me that is the shiniest is the internal part. And it doesn't mean that I'm not without faults or flaws, for sure not, right? I definitely have all kinds of bumps and bruises, right? However, you know, you can't present your person through an avatar or just a singular picture or a description or a paragraph. It has to be shared. And that light that we emit can only really be shared in some kind of certain settings when you feel comfortable to be around somebody and they feel comfortable enough to take in what you have to share. And so, in order to get to those kind of more vulnerable moments, you have to play some kind of game. But I believe personally if we have confidence in, that what we bring to the table is special and unique, and worth sharing, then we'll make the appropriate sacrifices in order to build that bridge. What do you think?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I am going back on actually something you said a couple moments ago, but like just the coming in, like totally myself. It makes it kind of fun. And I go on and off with it, but like this is a big difference for me than when I like dated before. I'm going to like sell myself. Even if I don't like the guy, I'm going to sell myself. And
Mm,
it's definitely shifted where I'm like, I'm going to play with a friend. And like, I don't know how much that friend likes me or doesn't like me, but like,
right.
I just come in like I am a talent and a national treasure. And like,
Yeah, you love that. That's right.
bright
That's right.
shiny star in the room, and I don't need to dim that, and I don't need to judge you, and you don't need to judge me. We don't need
Yeah.
to, we're just gonna have normal conversation. It
Yeah.
definitely is a different aspect of how I'm coming in that makes it not like an interview because they
Mm,
completely meet me on that. And then
yeah.
we're not doing a lot of, I don't really know a lot of the initial interview questions when I leave first date because we're kind of just talking, and
Yeah.
it feels very natural and fun. But and even if not interested, but I'm definitely not finding uh that deeper connection very easily. And I've
Hmm.
also noticed over the years, like I used to say, like I could definitely be with someone who wasn't like in a spiritual process themselves, and I really could, and I was, and I also now experience that not being the case for myself. um it doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be,
Sure.
practice
Sure.
their career, but that there's a faith, there's a belief in them.
Yeah.
I definitely in the app, if it says atheist, I just go out of it and it's an X because I've gone on those dates and I'm like a zoo animal to them if I say anything, and so I'm already not feeling right. And now I just know not to like push into that because I kind of had gone on those dates like, oh, they'll change.
Right.
But I do believe atheists are some of the strongest believers in the world. So I've also
Definitely.
met someone that was a former atheist that's like agreed with that. Now he's very spiritually connected through a lot of
Mm,
loss. And
mm,
that
yeah.
said, it can happen, but I don't have to be the person standing in the room to see if it does.
Yeah.
That
It's
those are things that kind of became non-negotiables that I didn't realize. But I don't filter out for it in the world. It's just what's around me in the
yeah.
world.
Yeah. It's a pro when you're mingling with somebody who you don't know, there's so much more that is unspoken than is spoken, right? I think as you get to know people further, you begin to know that, and so you can have a deeper query and say what else do you mean by that, and they will feel probably comfortable to express more deeply, and so then you can be like, oh, that's why I feel the certain way because you haven't really gotten to the place where you're speaking without filter, right?
Mm.
And so it is a little bit of an interview, but it's also, I feel like, a really nice practice in observation of oneself. So when someone says something to you that maybe you don't agree with or maybe doesn't fit in your worldview, you take it, at least I take it upon myself, not necessarily to castigate that person as an other or as a non-believer or as a, a different being, but I try to weave it into like an overall um, view of somebody like that's just part of their perspective. It's not all of their perspective. And so I like to take a stance of like an open focused meditation when I'm sitting with somebody and not to get too drawn into and not to get too drawn in, too excited by anything, right? Just like when we're sitting in a meditation, not to allow yourself to get too drawn away on some thoughts, but to keep it open and allow things to kind of come and go and allow that person to express themselves and be curious as to more, right? To follow along and follow through without getting, again, drawn
I
in
want
one way
to
or another.
frame something you said because it was really good. It's not, it's part of their perspective, not their whole perspective.
Yes.
That's a really good frame in the sense that when we're just meeting somebody, we can, be in the judge seat on accident because you're trying to kind of decide how to spend your time and how to not spend energy in places that you could reserve it for other places. But that idea of they're not even sharing, they're trying to share a layer and us getting caught on a tendril of it could
Hmm.
build out a story that's not really true because there are deeper layers the more we get
Yeah.
to know people. So I just like that as a quotation to frame.
Yeah. Well, and the same for, and the same, yeah, that's right. And I'm hopeful that people will do the same for me, but I don't know, and I can't make assumptions, but I feel like
If
if
they
I,
don't, I don't need to, that's not who's going to grow together. And so like
correct.
I think there's so much to like feeling old patterns of rejection that are really workable though. Like, cause it's kind of like, if this isn't what this person is into, I don't want it anyway because I'm so sure of what I am.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's
Think
and
that feeling goes away ever.
it's good to be, there was something that I had written down not that long ago that I will share now, and it's and I think I might have talked about this before, I think with Phaedra, but I'm going to mention it again because it just seems to fit right here. And it says, this is by Francesco Alberoni. It says, falling in love rearranges all of our priorities, throws the superfluous overboard, projects a glaring light onto what is superficial, and instantly discards it. So I like this, and I think that love in all of its forms is transformative in whatever way. And if you are aware of your own process in it, that it can be transformative for you and the person that, you're engaging with it or the people that you're engaging with it. And so I like to leave open the possibility that I am not the sole author of my particular story, that there is another hand that is writing this as well. And if I am aware of
Say
myself.
that last part again. It glitched on my end, so I just want to be sure it didn't glitch on the
Oh,
recording.
sure. Yeah, I like to take the approach that I am not the sole author of my story, that there is another hand that is co-authoring it simultaneous as I am, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I like to leave open the possibility that like there is probably going to be people who influence me differently. Just like when you put different flavors together when you're cooking a soup or a stew or a pie or whatever, things work differently when they're with something else. And every time that we encounter somebody, like you said earlier, sometimes you meet somebody and the resonance of their time with you stays longer than just for the meeting. And hopefully in a good way, right? Not like you want to shower and get bad taste out of your mouth, but like in a
That
good
kind of
way.
happened too, though.
Well, also,
Not the like, I just gotta like.
yeah, turmeric on pancakes, probably not a great mix?
That actually sounds kind of good. I don't know
Okay,
what
well,
analogy you're making, but that sounds delicious.
okay, well.
Syrup? Ooh.
Well, I'm just saying. So
Minute
I'm
turmeric?
what I'm saying is that different people bring out different aspects of us, and
Don't
and
work. Okay, I got the analogy.
yeah, and that just like depending on who and how you're interacting, that there might be other facets of ourselves that have yet to be unlocked or highlighted, or maybe even could grow with the presence of another. So I try and be patient with that and open to the possibility that I definitely don't have it all figured out because I do know for sure I do not have it all figured out.
than an ending.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Let's,
like, I was like, I have a whole other concept that just came to mind, but that was a good ending, so I gave it
all
a
right.
long pause.
We'll talk. This could be kind of like an ongoing thing, dating,
Oh
and
yeah.
we could
No,
just do
I was
this
just
once
thinking,
a
and
month.
you can cut.
So yes, this is a good place to stop, and we will do so. Katie, thank you so much for joining today and being on the rocket ship, Gin and Tantra. You know, slowly but surely, we are morphing ourselves into like relationships and spirituality podcast, which I'm all about here. You know, things have taken their way of growing or their growth pattern, and I'm good with the way that they're projecting out to be. So thanks for coming on, and audience again, thanks for listening. You guys know what to do: like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. Feel free to hit us up, ginandtantra@gmail.com, Gin and Tantra Podcast on Instagram, or, find one of us on Facebook, send us a message and tell us how much, you know, you like
Also,
cookies.
sexy our naked pictures are.
Also, yes, how sexy our naked pictures are. That's right. That's right. So for Katie, this is Daniel. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.